Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio with Scott and Shane. 2018 is off to a rocky start, but we're excited.
An educational start, we'll call it that.
Oh my gosh, wrong button. One button throws the entire world into chaos. You know, that's funny that one button can throw the entire show into chaos because...
Are you talking about the nuclear button?
There's a nuclear button that the two crybabies are complaining about all the time. You know, Rocket Man and Red Hair Man flowing in the wind, whatever.
We're not going there today. We're not talking about that at all today.
We've got a really fun show for you today.
I'm excited.
Besides the shenanigans we've just encountered and the craziness of why can't we get this to work? So, welcome. You're listening to Prepper Talk Radio. Scott and Shane. K-Talk Media. You can find us at preppertalkradio.com, ktalkmedia.com, and you can tune into all of our podcasts anywhere and everywhere.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And I guess, I want to apologize. I feel like we were a bit of a slacker the end of this last year. We ran 3 reruns instead of broadcasting for good reason. But I still feel like a slacker.
I don't, because I closed myself into the office and I just was cranking.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
we've been working really hard on this concept. You've heard us talk about it in the past. Ready Radius.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually put it all down in Word. In book form, and we'll be launching that here pretty soon. We've got to kick it off to the editor soon.
Yes.
And it's kind of our first, it is our first endeavor at a official publication.
Other than blogging, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be our first book. So, yeah, definitely excited about that.
So we'll let you know as soon as it goes live. You'll be able to find it digitally at first, and then we will probably self-publish it physically later. So
absolutely.
Not going to be like a 300-pager, don't worry.
Not yet.
It is a fun... engaging read. If I don't want to brag too much, I'll keep it there. But today we wanted to kind of bring that into your forefront of kind of thinking about preparedness a little bit differently. New year, new goals. Everyone kind of is like, oh, I'm gonna make a resolution to go to the gym every day. I'm gonna stop eating gluten, and I'm gonna be nicer to my brother Ted, or whatever. People set goals. Well, they make resolutions. Resolutions and goals are totally different. I think resolutions are crap. Goals I love, but for it to actually be a goal, it's got to be written down. But then I also put caveats on top of that. You've got to be able to have a timeline.
You have to be able to measure.
It's got to be measurable. Yep. You've got to have a timeline. You have to have it scheduled into your daily life so that you're working on it. You've also got to identify all the resources, the milestones, and the benchmarks along the way. And then most importantly, why are you writing this goal down? Why are you doing this?
Why is the center of the target. When you're aiming for the target, you're not aiming for the edge of the target. You're aiming for the center of the target. And the why is the center of that target.
And that goes back very easily into prepping. Why do you prep? Why do we prep? For me, I don't ever want to go hungry. And now that I'm a father, I don't ever want my child to go hungry. I don't want my wife to go hungry. I want to make sure my family has shelter. They're safe. Their quality of life is as good as it can be based on whatever scenario we're in. And so I'm not preparing for just one thing. I'm trying to be prepared for as many things as possible so that we're self-reliant.
More recently. Exactly. And I was going to go that same direction, Scott, is that I'm not so much referring to myself as a prepper so much anymore. I just want to be self-reliant. I mean, that's where everything that I'm focusing on is guiding me to being more self-reliant and less subject to the whims of politicians. I mean, whatever direction you want to go with that. It's just more self-reliant, maybe a little more isolated, right?
Absolutely. It's funny because, I grew up in a very Republican household.
Me too.
My grandma was a national Republican chairwoman or something for organization. So she got to hang out with Ronald Reagan, and I always thought it was really cool, right? Well, I've watched politics change over the years, and I've kind of fallen out of that, and I don't really think that I'd qualify as a Republican. I'm not a Democrat for sure. I'm kind of a mixed breed between a libertarian and a constitutionalist.
I kind of see myself that way too. Now, I know at one point you were thinking, maybe I'll go into politics. I'll start on the local level, and you're still
thinking about that.
You're still thinking about that?
Priorities, though, are my family and community service first. I serve with the Boy Scouts. I want to get involved with CERT. That's actually one of my goals. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Cool. But it comes down to, is my current situation something where I could donate more time? And unfortunately, it's not. But, I look at politics, especially on the small, lower circuit level. I love that they don't pay them very much. Like a
more of a stipend than
it's like city council. You might make $9,000 a year, and you're putting in 3 to 10 hours a week, and I think that's the way it should be. It should be very little reimbursements for what you're doing. The higher level they go, they pay them ridiculous amounts of money, and I think that's not right because then it encourages career politicians. And we're not going to go into that though, but and so I've left that out of my goals for now.
I'm glad to see that, honestly, Scott. I'm glad to.
It's in consideration, but it's out of my goals. And so today we're going to really just really drive into goals, drive into what 2018 is really all about. And as Shane gave me a good phrase, 2018 is the year of opportunity. Explain to our listeners what that means.
Well, one thing I would try and do every year on my blog is to kind of come up with some predictions for the coming year. A lot of these bloggers out there do this, and they say, "Oh, this is what's going to happen," and try and predict what's going to happen in the coming year, so you can better prepare for it. That's the reason why. Okay, this could potentially happen. I'm predicting this, so I'm going to prepare for this. This year, I'm taking a totally different approach. I'm calling it a year of opportunity. Now, my approach really isn't going to be all that different. It's more of the mindset, I think. The year of opportunity of having more time to prepare. And I guess what I'm saying there is that every minute we have, every additional day, every additional week, that the dollar doesn't collapse, that our society still stays in place, is another day for us to continue to get ready, to prepare, to become more self-reliant. So that's really where my theme is of a year of opportunity for 2018. I don't think that things are necessarily going to be any better than last year. I'm not thinking that Trump's going to fix everything, or that the economy is going to continue to boom. I'm not in that mindset.
Yeah.
I'm just using every minute, every hour, every day more fully, I guess you could say, taking the opportunity of every minute I'm given to better prepare myself and my family.
I love it. It's proactive, right? It's positive. It's not negative. It's proactive. It's putting the responsibility back on the self and away from anyone else, right? No one else is responsible to take care of you or your family except for you. That's your responsibility. I mean, that's just how it is, and that's really what this country was founded on, was the principle of allowing us to take care of ourselves, knowing that if we do it wrong, it's our fault, and if we do it right, it's to our reward.
It's our benefit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is your, I guess, let's start off with each one of our goals. We'll kind of go through them throughout the show, but what is your first priority goal or your first quarter goal? I like to break mine up quarterly, right?
And I haven't broken it up quarterly. I'm not as organized as you are, Scott. So
you're more analytical, though.
I guess depends on the topic, though. Depends on the topic. So, this is something I've always struggled with is making goals or resolutions and planning. And I think probably because life is more dynamic. It's not so set in stone. Things change so much that if I make a plan and you try and execute that plan, it doesn't work out because things are always constantly changing, right? So I've never been much into making a set plan. It's more like, here's a guideline. It's more of okay, this is what I want to accomplish by the end of the year, and so I'm not as refined as you, Scott, saying, okay, there's my first quarter, second quarter, so forth goals. Although I do have months. Say I want to accomplish this in this month, something like that, which then it eventually rolls to the next month, how that goes, and then to the next year. That's where I'm at this point. So I think the very first goal, and it kind of goes along with what we chose for our topic today, is kind of family emergency planning. And this has been on our hot sheet for the past couple of weeks, and now for the new year, we think this is the perfect topic to open up with for 2018 is family preparedness planning as a goal for 2018.
I love it.
Is planning in particular. There's having a plan and a detailed written plan. This is a specific plan.
That's funny because my wife and I, we've got pretty good plans for most situations and scenarios. If something happens and we're away from the home, if something happens and we're our home, we've got a lot of those written out. But I just realized it's in one binder, not two, not three, not four. We should probably have 4 or 5 different binders, one in each card, just because what I've learned as we've been writing our book is really when you're in a high-stress, high-pressure situation, your basic motor skills go out the window. And so All the small, fine skills are gone, right? Same thing with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a crap scenario, when it's a high crisis, high stress scenario, all of your thought processes change.
Well, yeah, just like being on the radio right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things I want to try and communicate to everybody, and I have my notes in front of me, yet I freeze up and I'm unable to communicate those things. So this is a perfect practice for me.
Oh, yeah. And
to be in front of, I don't know how many thousands of people, hopefully, listening. Thank you.
40 million people,
40 people
listen
million
to our
people
show
listen to our show right now.
every day.
So this is a perfect opportunity for me to overcome, right, and to break through and to clear my mind and to focus. Okay, this is the thing. These are the things I want to communicate to you guys.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for the opportunity.
And you were mentioning off air before we got here. You were talking about one of those plans that is kind of the evacuation plan. Is kind of your foremost important one right now.
Yeah, we've been working on this as a family for a few months now.
Okay.
And I think probably what inspired this is the fires in California.
Oh yeah,
they came on pretty quickly. Man, we got to get out. What are we going to take with us? We have 5 minutes. We have 10 minutes. We have a half an hour. We have an hour. We have 2 or 3 days notice. What are we going to get ready to bug out with? What are we going to stage? What are we going to take to bug out with in a moment's notice?
Gotcha.
So that's something we've been practicing as a family. Okay, let's come up with our own personal lists.
Nice.
And how we're going to, if we're only given, like I say, a minute or 10 minutes or half an hour to evacuate our home for whatever reason, that this is the sequence, and these are the highest priorities, and these are the lowest priorities. So I think maybe after the break we can start to get into some of those details.
I love that you prioritize. I mean, if you don't prioritize what's most important, you'll probably buy all the things that don't matter first because they're super affordable. Or you'll probably grab all the things that don't matter first because they're easy to grab. And then you'll miss out on the most important things when you're running out the door, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to help you eliminate the chances of that happening. We want to help you be better prepared so that you don't have to worry about that happening. And so that it's just, I know what the plan is, and execute. Right?
And not just me, but every member of the family know, okay, we've talked about this, we've practiced this, and now it's time to execute.
Absolutely. Hey, stay tuned. We're hitting our first break. You're going to hear from our sponsors, but you are listening to Prepper Talk Radio, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio with Scott and Shane, and we are excited. We're eager. We've been waiting for this and anticipating this show. It's funny because we just talked to the station owners and to station managers, and there's some new shows that are here on K-Talk, and we haven't been paying attention at all, which is not like us.
Too self-absorbed.
We've been in our dungeons working on our book. It's all the things we've been talking about for the last few years on the show. And you know our philosophy. It's really about self-reliance. It's really about getting your education, getting an understanding of how you can do things better, being more time-sensitive, being more energy-sensitive, passive solutions as much as possible so you're not exerting all that energy.
And when it comes to gear and supplies, we like layers.
Layers
we
of
like
protection.
what we refer to as the ready radius. So our book is mostly about that, about from your individual person all the way out to
your group,
your vehicle, your group, your home, your bug out location, how that preparedness radius, whatever you want to call it, we call it the ready radius, how that all works together.
And you layer up
Yep.
and you layer down depending on what your needs are at the time. So we'll delve into that later, but today is all about setting and making appropriate goals and how to make those goals, what you need to be setting as goals, what we're setting for goals for 2018, which is the year of opportunity.
The year of opportunity. Here's a question I have for all you listeners. Feel free to call in 801-254-1640. What are you concerned about in 2018? That's a perfect place to start when setting goals for preparedness, for prepping, self-reliance, whatever you want to call it. What are you concerned about in 2018? I've got my list, and that's kind of the why, right?
Right.
Start with the center of the target, start with your why, and then you figure out what and how.
So
or
you
how and
mentioned your family evacuation plan in the last segment. What is the why behind your evacuation plan?
That is a great question. I think the why behind it is really the reason I started teaching my kids because I want them to be aware. that was my why right there. That's why I started. I wanted to be more aware of not just, being at home and being in a safe place, right? We're in a safe place where everybody comes and feels secure here. That's been my purpose of how I've secured our home and such, is that, okay, be aware that, we may have to leave here at some point. I don't see that as being a very great of a possibility, but we still need to prepare for it. I don't anticipate it.
Contingency plan for it. And I think that's the key. Is it's a contingency plan based on the why, which is keeping your family safe.
And the why is also waking them up a little bit, right? Having them look around and see, okay, what are the dangers, the concerns that we have around us that I need to be aware of, instead of just letting Dad worry about that or just being blissfully unaware. I think that's been my main why to do this. Well, but of course, there are other reasons as to keep us all safe and so forth. But that's kind of why I started.
When you're walking around town or driving around town doing your thing, how many people do you come across daily that are staring at their little phone screen walking down the sidewalk, or they're looking at their phone screen while driving down the road?
Well, and they're not even being considered drivers.
They're not paying attention to the world around them. They may be totally engrossed in the news of the world around them, but they have no idea what's really going on around them. And that's a level of awareness we all need to get back to. Horses are fantastic. They listen and they see everything that's going on, but they're also using the rider to, if I get nervous, they'll get nervous because they're like, okay, why is my rider getting nervous? What's going on around me? They take additional resources to help them be better aware of what's going on.
That's a great point.
Oftentimes we close off our own awareness by our own choice and by our own actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
My major concerns played out last year, joblessness, went on a long break without pay, and it was hard. It was difficult. But guess what got me through it?
Your
my
savings.
Preparedness. Well, it wasn't just my savings. It was that third ring of preparedness is really your home stockpile, right? We had silver that we cashed out. And the nice thing is it was a great return on investment. It was a 21% return on investment over the 2-year period.
That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a savings account. Yeah. I mean, that's the purpose that I use silver for.
Yeah, we used it for that. We still got some. We used our food storage. And our food storage, a lot of people are like, oh, you ate powdered food all year? And I'm like, no, stupid, no. Food storage is everything in your pantry all the way to your long-term storage. And you should be rotating all of it anyways. And so all we did is we just rotated it more. And I got creative. I found other avenues of income while I was looking for that next opportunity to go down. But that's always been my number one reason to prepare. Why? Well, because when I was a kid, we had that happen in my life. And there were times where I'd be hungry, going through a growth spurt, and my mom's like, sorry, you can't have any more.
Wait for dinner.
And I'm like, no, this is at dinner.
At dinner.
The one meal I'd eat at home every day. That's why I got my first job mowing lawns. And then doing newspapers, and then working at Burger King. I mean, I didn't want to go hungry. And so for me, that's my big why is I don't ever want to have to look at my kid and say, I'm sorry, you can't have any more. Or I can't turn the heat on. And so, we used savings. We used food storage. That's what it's meant for, is to be used. To be used in a time of need. And so what are your whys? And let's talk about the things that you're trying to prepare for. What are the whys behind them? But then how are you going to make sure that those goals get accomplished this year?
And I think another aspect that you reminded me of while you're talking about that is that we always look. I always say we got to look to the past to prepare for the future. This is exactly how our ancestors lived. They lived off their food storage. They don't even call it food storage. It was just their foods, their supplies.
Oh, they'd store it for the fall and the winter, and then the spring harvest. I mean, it's just the life cycle of food and storage and understanding how seasons work and understanding what you need to do. I mean,
and life has gotten so convenient that we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then it became forgotten. And then now it looks like, oh, you're living off your food storage. What's wrong? No, this is life. This is the way life is supposed to work, or it worked for thousands of years. Just because it hasn't in the past, 40, 50, 60 years doesn't mean it's not normal. It's not average.
And it's so easy to get disconnected from your family when you're eating out, or you're always going through the drive-thru. You're living the on-demand lifestyle. It doesn't create closeness with your family. It actually pulls you apart.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, you watch the commercials and they're like, oh, the new Xfinity Mobile, blah, 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 turn everything off from one phone, and nobody has access, and everyone's like, whoa, what are you doing to me? Well, it's dinner time. Oh. They're actually encouraging us to reconnect.
Yeah.
They see that there's a problem. And prepping actually helps you reconnect. Yeah. Reconnects with what's going on around you, reconnects with your family, reconnects with society. I mean, I know more people because I've become a spokesperson about prepping. I've met more people and I've been able to help and influence more people, but I've also been influenced and been helped by more people in this industry, and it's all about helping others. I don't care what blog you've read. I don't care what site you go to, and if someone tells you lone wolfing is the way to go and you can do it all on your own, that they're wrong, because the community understands that you need numbers. Numbers is strength. And so, but all of that's for naught if there's no planning. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. Planning, and I think planning is probably harder than actually you think it might be. So, I make a plan. You have a plan in your head, but have you put that plan on paper? And
okay, so let's talk about that plan. Right? We'll use me as the guinea pig. You guys can call in and bash me if you want to. I would love it. You probably won't bash me, but you'll give me some ideas. The number to call in if you want to join in the conversation: 801-254-1640. And so here's one of my goals. First quarter goal is ham radio. I neglected it last year. I was studying, and as I got busier trying to launch PrepperCon, it just totally fell to the wayside, and I never picked it back up. Because then I was scrambling to find new income, right?
Well, there's then again, you go back to the why. Why did you want to get it? I guess that why wasn't strong enough for you to keep you on that goal. So,
but as I've assessed my preparedness, this has been like fantastic for me to be unemployed, for me to not have a job, not have an income.
Call it self-employed, not
self-employed. Yeah, well, it's the same thing though. Self-employed and unemployed is almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
And to the government, they charge you more in taxes,
which makes no sense.
Self-employed, it's like, well, how did that help us? Anyway. Exactly. But there's tax benefits too. Not as many, but great. So here's the point. I learned as I was going through all of my gear, and as we were, every quarter or every 6 months, we try to assess everything we have, make sure we've got everything, and we try to refill our surplus, if you will. But I noticed major gaps. And I was like, I thought I was doing so well. And the number one gap is communication. We've got radios to listen, but we have no radios to communicate. And we've got power systems, power solutions, but they're gas or propane. I don't have any solar.
Other than maybe the minor little things for charging individual batteries.
I've got three of the little tiny fold-out ones that can charge a phone. But if the phones are down, the towers aren't working, what good are those? I mean, they'll charge a ham radio, and the ham radios, they don't need anybody else's stuff. I mean, we can connect to other people's towers, but it's line of sight, depending on the watts and the amperage and all that other fun stuff that I don't know, and the frequencies. So, but I was just like, holy crap. Those are my two major things that I'm like, I need to fill that gap.
So let's ask why. Why is that so important in an emergency plan? Why is communication so important?
I don't want to be alone, right? Okay. I do not want to be alone. And when you can't communicate, you're alone.
But you got neighbors all around you.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because if they don't have ham radios either, who are we communicating with outside to get resources?
But I think we can also put our ready radius. That works perfectly well with communications. Radius is a perfect example of radio waves. They go out in a radius. So with our different layers of communication, you've got the most basic, let's say AM, FM radio, right?
Okay.
Everybody, you buy a decent, that's not even the right word. You buy a piece of crap 72-hour kit. And it comes with a little hand crank piece of crap radio, right? That's kind of what I was getting to. So I still have hand crank radios from our first 72-hour kits, 20 years ago, right?
And some of them still work, and some of them are corroded and don't work.
So that's like your first layer, right? Is the hand crank AM FM radio, piece of crap, piece of junk.
Okay.
And so the second layer would be so that's like your primary, it's very basic, is AM FM. So your alternate would be what? Well, you got your cell
radio
phone.
Would be another
CB,
good one, right?
You can CB. You can FRS radio.
FRS.
Family
and we've got
radios.
FRS. And ours are actually, we've got ham radios that are all set up FRS because we can't use ham. And the amps have been tuned down and everything's down. But so those are, it's very basic. but that's what we have. Once I get certified, then I can turn everything up and I can use better frequencies and communicate farther. But for now, that's what we have. So my radius stops there. My ready radius is like, sorry, you have no other layer
Can't
past
extend
that.
beyond that.
You know, I know my neighbors. I know which ones have ham and which ones don't. Guess how many of them have ham? 0. There's a CB system in my neighborhood from the steak center. One person has ham that goes to the steak center, and they've got communication there.
With CBs.
And then they use the CBs to so they've got the ham, then they convert it to CBs to tell the block captains. But the block captains, I found out, haven't been trained in 2.5 years. So how many of them still have batteries charged for their CB radio?
And this is, of course, assuming that cell phone towers are down, you're unable to use your cell phone. Because obviously in a communication plan, your first go-to is going to be your cell phone or your landline, whatever that is nowadays.
But what have we learned when a disaster happens?
It's overwhelmed.
It gets overwhelmed. There's too many calls, too many texts, too much data usage, so you can't get a call out. So how nice is it to be able to call somebody on a ham radio? And those are the stories we hear all the time is, I was able to connect with another hammer out in Texas, and they were able to find someone that could get a hold of my grandpa and tell him, hey, we're all okay. We're alive.
But and the thing with that ham in particular, with that type of communication, you can't just, hey, I'm going to jump on the ham radio and try and find somebody in Texas. And that takes planning. You have to know which frequencies and who to talk to down there. You have to make connections. You have to make contacts. It's not just like, I need to find out. I have a family in California, whatever, and I'm going to jump on my ham radio and try and find, it's not even close to being that simple. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, the right equipment, just to be able to coordinate that. So this is, I think communication is the perfect place to start. So I think you're absolutely right.
All of that's my why, right?
Yeah.
So here's my plan. I've tried to study on my own and do it. I'm not dedicated enough to do it. So I found one of the local universities here has a guy that teaches it once a month on a Saturday, and he proctors the test. So he does everything there at the campus. I've just got to call him and schedule. So I'm calling him and scheduling it
After this show.
Actually, I'm calling him on Saturday because I'm selling my truck after the show, so I can't. I'll be busy. So tomorrow I'm calling him. It's on my calendar. I'm scheduling it, finding out when his next class is available, and I'm actually going to take my wife. We're both going to get ham certified because what's the point of just one of us, right? And I know you've got your license. I've got other friends that have their licenses, and you guys are going to be the first people that I'm going to set up calls with and practice with. And then find people who have been doing this for a long time and continue to grow that network. But that's my number one first, hey, I got to do this goal. It's been something I've been trying to do, wanting to do, but I've never really made it a goal.
And now you're being resolute.
I'm being resolute, meaning immovable, meaning hardened, meaning foundation.
So when we set resolutions and break them, then we're really demeaning the word resolute.
Absolutely. And that's why I hate the resolution thing every year because, I'm going to the gym. 2 days later, man, that was so tiring. I need to take a break for a couple of days. And then the next year, you're like, oh, time to go back to the gym. It's January already. I got two times last year. This time I'm going to get 3. That doesn't do us any good. And same thing with our preparedness plans. I mean, it doesn't do us any good if we're just saying, oh, I'm going to do this, and then don't do it. Write it down. Write down what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. I'm going to have this done by March. I will have, you guys can call in and test me in March and
We'll
say.
broadcast his call sign at the time.
We will broadcast my call sign, and you guys can hold me accountable that I'm getting my goal done. So that's the other part of it is find someone who's going to hold you accountable. Someone in your group, your 4th level of your readiness radius. Who's going to hold you accountable? So, Shane, can you hold me accountable?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm going to check in with you to make sure that you get your evacuation plan done and executed and practiced.
Okay, so I will make a commitment here live as well that I will have – our plans are in place. They're just not written and posted and distributed like they should be to each member of the family in places we've already established. That will be the plan I will have done as soon as we're done with our book. This is my next goal. So next week, by the end of the month, I will have our family emergency evacuation plans in written form, detailed written form, distributed to everyone and posted in conspicuous places.
Perfect.
That's
hey,
my
we got
goal.
a caller. Let's pick them up. We're actually going to put them on hold because we're hitting our break. But we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Hey, welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio with Scott and Shane here at K-Talk AM 1640. We've got Elaine on the line, and for those of you who know Elaine, she's been a long-time listener, long-time calling in. We haven't heard from you in a couple of months, Elaine. So glad you called in and called me out.
Okay.
So tell everybody what you told me.
Okay. It's not that hard to be disciplined. It's not that hard to do something good for somebody else. Every morning when I get up, and I'm doing this a long time, and I'm an old lady, I get up and I say, today is going to be better than yesterday. And I want to do something good for somebody else. And I do. I seek it, I find it, and I do it. And I get up, and I take the dog, put it on the leash. I go for an hour walk, and I come back. And I am in the martial arts. I'm an expert, so I do all my katas and stuff. And then I come in, and I start my day. And then I will call some places that I know and ask them if they need anybody, like maybe to come in during the week or something to do something for charity.
That's
Even if
awesome.
I just do it once a month. Everybody can give up something once a month, once a week. If they say they can't, read my lips, because I love this word. Everybody loves it. Who-we-do-we.
Who-we-do-we.
It's all a bunch of who-we-do-we. That's right. You can find out something to do for another human being.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your call. That's, I think, really what it boils down to, and what we're trying to really drive home today. It's all about taking action. Self-discipline is taking action. And a lot of times we forget that.
So good to hear your voice again, Elaine. It's been far too long.
So when it goes back to setting the goals, when it goes back to getting it done, I think one of the other points that Elaine brought up is you've got to sacrifice something else. You've got to choose what you're going to give up so that you can do this. That's huge.
A little bit of sleep, give a little bit of sleep up.
No, that's bad for you. Give some TV
Depends
up.
on how much sleep you're getting.
Give some computer screen time up.
If I'm not watching TV, I got nothing to give, right?
But if you're not sleeping, you got nothing to give either. That's where I am.
Okay. So you got to figure that out, right?
So
exactly what
new year opportunity. What is it you're going to prepare for? What are you prioritizing? Because if you're not preparing, as we said in the last segment, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
You're planning to fail. And the plan can be, it doesn't have to be detailed, but it does need to be written down.
Well, it does need to be written down. It has to be a little bit detailed. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. I mean, you've got to have a timeline when you're going to get it done. You've got to have a schedule when you're going to do it. Elaine's example is she gets up every day and she knows exactly what she's going to do every day. Boom, boom, boom. First hour, I'm going to go for do a mile on the road with my pet, then go do my martial arts training, and then I go find places to serve. For those of us who are doing the 9 to 5 or maybe the 80-hour work weeks or whatever, we've got to find time and make sure we dedicate that time to this.
And of course, we orient that towards preparedness. And I think one of my goals this year is to focus more on skills rather than just stuff, right? And I've already started doing this last year, near the end of the year. I've realized this, and I'm focusing more on this year because I love stuff. I love gear. I'm a gearhead. We're gearheads.
Both gear junkies.
And to have the skills to use that gear is much more important than just having the stuff itself.
Well, and I think that's the most pivotal thing in our philosophy that's different than a lot of the others, is that the things that we know and the things that we practice are the things that we can count on. The things that we stockpile are things we cannot count on. Mm-hmm. We can hope to count on them, but the things that we know, the things that we can do, the skill sets, the mindset, and the knowledge, that's the most valuable thing we have.
Yeah, there's too many variables. Exactly. There's too many variables outside of our control when it comes to our stuff. Can you hang on to our stuff? I mean, is it slippery? Are we going to lose it? So what are some aspects of a preparedness plan that everyone should incorporate into those plans, regardless of what the plan is, whether it's a communications plan, whether it's an evacuation plan, whatever it may be? What are some components of that plan that we need to incorporate? What do you think?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what do I have around me when I have to go?
Okay.
What kind of evacuation is it? Mm-hmm. We should be planning now to have different types of evacuation so that we can get out when we need to. If there's a power outage and we know it's going to be long term, okay, where can we go? Is there a backup place we can go to? Is it a fire? Do we have to get out short notice? Is it a flood? Do we have to get out short notice? Mm-hmm. Is it a pandemic? Do we have to get out short notice? Those are the types of things you want to be prepared for long in the future, right? Or long in the past. Get it done now because you never know when it's going to happen. It may never happen, but those same items can be used redundantly across so many other situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
One thing that we've talked about before is the PACE method, PACE.
So what are your goals for the year? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and kind of like what I was trying to get some callers to call in on is what are you concerned about in 2018? There's a lot of concerns out there. If you're watching and you're seeing what's going on in the media, there's a lot of things that particularly concerned about. But what can you do about that? What kind of plans can we make right now to prepare for? I mean, there's certain things there's not much we can do about, like the big nuke button. What can we do about that? There's not a whole lot we can do, but there are some things that we can do to prepare for that, to make plans for that, and in those very minor eventualities. So we need to create that list of, okay, what's our number one concern? What's our number two concern, and so forth. Number one concern for me is right now, kind of like I mentioned, is our evacuation plan. What's our evacuation plan? Because we've got 7 of us in our house. And it's got to be organized. It's got to be quick. Yep. Otherwise, we're going to trip and we're going to stumble. We're going to forget things, and it's not going to be. I mean, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, regardless.
Right.
But
those things have to be easily accessible. You need to know where they are at all times and what's in there. And if you're not going through that and you don't know what it is, like how many people have I talked to that don't have clothing in their 72-hour kits? They'll go buy something at a store, and that's okay. It's a good start. A lot of times, those are things that may not help you, or that could put you in more danger than it's worth. But know what you have, know how to use it, and then make sure you've got the things you absolutely need, like change of clothes, sanitation plans. If it's a pandemic situation, wow, you got to take care of a lot more things. You may need hazmat suits. There's so many different things you may need. N95 masks, breathing solutions. If there's smoke, if there's a fire going on, you've got to evacuate. Well, you want some fresh air. You want to be able to filter out what you're breathing. And so have those things in those bags. Have those things ready to go when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the next thing I'm preparing for, and this is kind of constantly preparing for, there isn't anything that I am not focused on this year that it doesn't have to do with self-reliance and preparedness. I mean, that's the way it always is for me anyway. Right. I'm a prepper, right? That's what I do. So, and kind of like what we alluded to a little bit before on the show is, I like silver. To save for the future, I'm looking to the past. I'm looking to what was real money in its day. And I mean, it still is money if you ask me, but others don't consider it money, but it is. So that's another concern of mine is, okay, financially, if something happens, whether it's related to my job or to the economy or whatever it might be, I am preparing for that as well, and I'm doing it consistently and in reasonable amounts. And that's, I think, how we should approach every aspect of preparedness.
Absolutely.
Is let's do it little by little, step by step.
It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
It doesn't have to be overwhelming. I'm going to do a little here, a little there, and eventually, over time. And that's why I'm calling this kind of the year of opportunity. We have the opportunity to prepare a little bit more every single day, take those little steps, and it honestly makes me feel good. Like I feel a little more prepared today than I was yesterday. Yep. Kind of like Elaine's approach. I'm gonna make today's better than it was yesterday by maybe improving some skills, going out and with my boy, and we're gonna practice some fire starting skills or whatever it might be. But I'm focused on skills. I think this year more than anything than just stuff. Of course, like we always talk about, have your year's worth of food storage. Have your water storage. Those should always be priority, but it doesn't have to be about stuff.
Right. And I think that's one of my things too. I mean, I've got a list of books that I'm going to try to get through this year, and I've put the most priority-driven books first. I've got Bushcraft 101 and Bushcraft Bible are two of my first books that I want to really go through this year, because they're not just. It's not a novel. I've got novels too that I want to read, but these are practical skills and things that I should know. For wilderness survival. I mean, part of it's because I'm a scout leader and I want to make sure I've got those skills for the scouts. Another thing is understanding ropes, different types of ropes, what they're used for, as well as knot tying, the different types of knots for different types of uses. Those are things that I've got people around me that are fantastic at those. You're one of them.
Your brother's one.
My brother's fantastic at it. I'm not. That's another area of weakness, and so I want to make sure I study up on those.
You're afraid not.
Yes, I'm afraid. I'm a rope that's been tied and then frayed. I'm afraid not. But those are things that I can work on, that I can improve on, and that I need to work on and improve on. So that's part of like my downtime that I would normally choose to watch a TV show. I'm replacing some shows. with book time.
Perfect.
You know, I've been replacing those shows with book writing time, and that's great. But we also need to be growing. We need to be developing our skills and our knowledge and our mindset. Another gap that I've got is medical, and triaging and going through disaster simulations. I really don't do, and I haven't had the opportunity to. So, CERT is one of my goals for this year. But wow, we're already out of time. You're listening to K Talk 1640, and this has been Prepper Talk Radio. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Friday.